How would you feel about a high school class called therapy where kids are taught how to set boundaries and deal with their emotions in a healthy manner? As a former high school student, I can tell you 60% of them would not take it seriously. Edit: this is a rough estimate. Depending on the class dynamic, it could be anything between 100% of the class and like 50, I'd say. The other way would be more realistic, though I feel like, edit 2, if we use this comment section as a field experiment, I've found that for every positive opinion on this subject there are 2 to 3 negative ones, so my estimate of 60% was slightly low. Now, I know that Reddit might not be the perfect testing grounds, but you have to agree that there is a clear trend here. My friend is training to be a social worker, and I'm currently working in a school. They do sessions on friendship, romantic relationships, boundaries and consent, and other modules which try to teach social and emotional healthy behaviors. It's not quite the same as what you're saying, but it does have elements of this. I think the key is you start young and then continue to build on it in different ways. The point I would make though is that this is not for teachers to teach, it's for social workers or therapists. I had a class in HS called Life Skills that was all about emotional health. It was a good thing. Sadly, one of our classmates, he and his girlfriend were both in the LS class, passed away mid-year. He fell out of a boat and couldn't swim. Having that group really helped us work though coming to grips with it. Rip Tiger. Realistically, if anyone knows you're in that class, you're going to get bullied. I would have firmly ignored about everything in it as a teenager at that age. I was okay in high school, but everything got set up for depression I have had since college that I haven't been able to shake. But looking back at me in high school, I don't think anyone could have gotten through. I had a series of a few sessions with a therapist my mom wanted my brother and I to do with her, and I hated them and wouldn't have considered going to any other therapist then, even though the therapist was really worried about me. I think for the class to be effective it would definitely require competent, experienced teacher who listens. This is due to half of the class would treat it like a joke just as they do sex ed. I don't think it's a bad idea, but a lot of people wouldn't take it seriously, and the only ones that would take it seriously brings us to B, it's generally not something most people, especially the ones that needed it, want to do as a group, especially with classmates. You mean health class? I would think it is super stupid. I mean, it would be helpful, but nobody cares about that. We are teenagers. I like the idea in general, but would make it more broad and general, like a self-care class, where kids learn about sleep, diet, exercise, communication, mindfulness, and yes, boundaries and emotional regulation could be part of the curriculum. Not everyone would be engaged, but could make a big difference to the overall well-being of the school. High school-aged me would have resented the duck out of being forced to do that. Crosses a personal boundary, you might say. There is no panacea for human emotion. We're all different. I think it would need to be emotional health rather than therapy. And I think it would be a great idea if incorporated as a required class or a part of existing health class curriculum. I didn't pay attention in math. Why would I in some class that doesn't even get me a qualification? Way too ducking late. You want that shit in elementary school when kids are still moldable. Assuming the class is going to be taught by a high school teacher, and not a real therapist professional? If so, then I think it's a god-awful idea. Waste of time. That's a parent's job, not a high school's job. Isn't that just called parenting? My school board implemented a unit like this into my ethics class for this year. We'll be talking about toxic versus non-toxic relationships and how to deal with emotions. Though, I'm not too sure how well this will play out. I have a feeling a lot of students will just make fun of the class and not take it seriously. We can barely teach kids go read in schools. There isn't a single high school teacher I'd trust to teach such a class. Totally against it. Waste of school time, and only invites bullying. How would you feel about insert popular opinion here? Why does this shit get upvoted to the top? That isn't the concern of public school. That's a job for parents or maybe a private institution. They've started to introduce the idea of talking about feelings at my school. I wouldn't take it serious even though it would help. It really depends on the people that teach it. I don't know. Don't call it therapy though, that would either scare off the people that need it most or attract the wrong kinds of people. I have a feeling a lot of liberal agendas will come into play and make a lot of snowflakes out of them, like giving them a closet to cry in. I have a class at my high school called Positive Psychology, and it is all about how to improve your mental health and offers support to depressed students. They also learn about meditation and other methods of dealing with anxiety and depression. They watch movies every Friday and go on walks every day. I hear it's pretty nice. Sound like a good idea, but it would be hard to A. Find a teacher that can properly consult a generalized group of raging hormone teens. B. Kids who will take the class seriously. C. Kids who actually need the help, but are too insecure to reach out. I think it needs to start younger to combat the negative stigma around it. No reason elementary and middle school students can't be exposed to these lessons too. Sure, they may not take it seriously either, but the repetition will make it stick in a good number of kids and have a longer lasting impact. Emo. Let's stop letting the weaker population drain the resources from everyone else. Not a bad idea. Personally, I think a class on best practices for handling money would be so beneficial. I'd rather have a high school class called Paying Taxes, Applying for College, Budgeting, and Laws You Should Know. I feel like you might not even need a therapy class, given these options. Not as a mandatory thing. We did something like that last year and it bored the ever-loving shit out of me. My high school had Challenge Day, which was a full-day workshop on boundaries, trauma, etc. I would say that around 80% of attendees saw it as a way to take a day off from school and laugh with their friends at people who took it seriously. Admittedly, I took it seriously. This is a class that should be instituted in elementary school. In high school it would be wasted. As a current high school student, I can assure no kid will take it seriously. A class? No. A couple dedicated staff members to help deal with such issues is needed, sure. It's not like schools have guidance counselors or anything. As long as they bring in someone trained in those things like a counselor or psychologist. Regular classroom teachers have enough without having to do that, too. I think the idea is good, it would just need to be done well. If it was set up like a class, it would make my situation a lot worse. TBH. I took a class in high school titled Relationships. It covered advice on current and future relationships, recognizing and processing emotions, and helped to improve communication with people we interacted with daily. We got to vent about poor interactions and offered strategies for the future. We also did breathing exercises laying on the floor with the lights off. Naps were not discouraged. Sounds like something Reddit user would come up with. I would not brand it as therapy, to be honest. Good in theory though. Think it needs more polish, and instead of a class, would maybe have it as a concept for a course on self-leadership. I think a class called Basic United States Law and Human Rights would be much more valuable. I can't believe they throw kids out into the world without know things like how an eviction works, or what to do if you are under arrest. Honestly? Waste of taxpayer money. Kids would not use that time for anything but goofing off. These classes exist now in Plano, Texas in public schools and high school. Once a week class, kids love them. Parents can attend 5 classes outside of school hours with the family. We have attended one and it was great. I think it is called emotional learning and we all learned. I think they are in the 2nd year of this program at the school. My middle kid is a freshman. Edit, cell, social emotional learning.